Hi, it's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. Today I'm going to show you how I paddock move my cows. I've had some questions about this, how I do it, how I tie my fence, how often, how far I move it. So I'm going to go over that stuff today. Stick around.
I'm Jared McGinnis. Live in Southern Ohio with my awesome wife Jenny. We have 4 sons, Colt, Gideon, Ruger, and Gatlin. This is a story of how we sold our new home in the suburbs, purchased an old, unserviceable farm, and began to transform it into a local food source for us and our local community. We're on a mission of faith, family, and healthy food. Please subscribe and come with us on this journey. We are Strong Roots Farm.
All right, so tying the fence, all I did was go underneath and over top once. I'm going to loop around. A lot of people have these fancy knots they like to make, and they tell me I have to make 3 knots to make good connection. I'm doing it this way. I'm getting 9,000 volts on my sidelines and 8 to 9 on these cross lines. Plenty from this Gallagher charger that I have. This is the way I'm tying it here. Next, I'm going to string it up down across the field over here to the next line. So I've come from my edge line over here at the woods, come down to my first stake, and I do once around and kind of lock it in. This fiberglass black stake, somebody gave me these. These are not my favorite kind of stakes to use, but they were free and somebody gave them, so I'm using them. But I do this, and I'll do this 4 times across this one paddock here as we move across. So it'll have 1 on each end and then 2 in the center. All right, so I've gone all the way to the end here. I've tied along with my other cross fence that goes down this way. Basically, I create these long alleys. I try to do about 100 foot wide, so it gives me easy math, or 50 foot wide, wherever I'm running at. But then I make cross fences across, and those are the fences that I move. The long alleys stay the entire time they're in that alley, and they just move along through it. So this is how I put one in. Let's go over to the other end where I just took one down. About 10 minutes ago, I took this one down. The fence ran this way, okay? You can kind of see over here, the grass is higher than it was here. So they're already starting to go through it. And this is where they were yesterday, which is where my water trolley is now, and that's where they were the day before. I typically put a back line fence, so that I only let them back graze so much. But it's really hot right now. You can see I'm sweating, I'm out here, and there's not a lot of shade in this field, except for down at that end right now, until they come up to this next paddock that they'll be in. So when they get in this next paddock, I'll put a back fence in, so they can't go back, they'll stay in the shade up here. It's all about keeping them comfortable. They do have the water trolley, they can go up. So there's different ways to measure your sizes. I said that I like my alleyways to be 50 or 100 feet wide, roughly. Okay, so I walk this off. I'm not bringing a measuring tape out here, and I like cow days. So Joel Salatin in his book, Grass-Fed Beef, he talks about cow days and the math of it. And I never really heard this term before as much as I had been around farming. Here in Ohio where we're at, all I ever heard was cows per acre. I never heard cow days. So a cow day is how many square foot a cow will eat in one day, or acres in a year. So if you have 180 cow days, that pretty much means 2 acres per cow, if that makes sense. This is kind of a lesson for a whiteboard. Maybe I'll do that later, but the basic math is you want to determine how much hay you have or grass you have in your pasture and how many cows it can feed in one day. You only want to give them enough pasture to let them eat it for one day. There's different thoughts here. Salatin likes to graze it all the way down about 4 inches from the ground, right to the edge of that juvenile state to where the grass has a jolt. People on new grass like to graze where they take half and leave half. So they tend to have less weed pressure with that. If you're trying to cut weed pressure back, they'll do that. The cows will trample the weeds. They'll take half the grass, the weeds will break off, and then with half the grass left, the grass will grow up over and smother the weeds out. That's kind of the thought process. So with mine, I did the measurements. So at 100 foot with 3 cows per day, it was 7.6 feet if I have 180 cow day grass. So I'm giving them more than that now. I'm giving them 15 feet. So 15 to 18 feet every day I move this electric fence line. The grass is not as good here in this pasture. This is my neighbor's pasture. It's never had cows on it that I can recollect, or he ever told me. He bush hogged it before I got here, so it wasn't meant to be a pasture, but I'm grazing it. He gave it to me for free for doing some work for him. They're super nice people. I have awesome relationship with my neighbors. And he said, hey, while your hay is growing up over here on the new farm, come over and graze this for me. Just graze it down, and when we're done, we'll bush hog what's left. It's a great deal for me. So I'm over here grazing it for him, and I'm getting the free hay, but it's not good. So there's a lot of weeds, there's a lot of old foliage, it's higher than it really needs to be, there's a lot of brown grass, as you can see, and so the cows aren't getting the nutrition on the 180 cow days, which means I don't have very good pastures here. It just means I have maybe 90 cow days, which would mean if I was a farmer and this was my land and I was going to use this pasture, that I would need 4 acres per cow. So I don't have as good a grass here as I should. There's some other ways though to tell. Let's go and look at the first one. It's kind of weird, but let's go look. So the next way I look at it is their poo, their manure, their dung. You look at it and see kind of what's going on. If it's hard and round and kind of like rabbit poop or big balls, you know, they're getting too much foliage, so it's too hard. If it's runny and sticking to them and like diarrhea, then they're getting too much green stuff. They're not getting enough foliage. It should be pumpkin pie consistency. That sounds weird, and I hope it didn't ruin pumpkin pie for you, but that's what Joel Salatin says in his book, and I'm kind of watching it here. Let's look at some, and I'll show you the difference. Okay, so this is a pretty good patty here. So it's irregular shaped. It's not perfectly round, which meant it wasn't 100% runny, but it didn't come out in lumps. It's kind of smushed. Pumpkin pie consistency. We're talking about poop on my video. Here we go. So let's go to the other one here. Walk over to this one, and you can see this here is kind of lumpy and round. So this one here has a little more foliage. Okay, so I'm pretty close because like I've got some manure that has that right consistency, but some of it's a little harder. Not bad yet. That's still okay. It's still coming out. It's not real hard yet, but they might be getting a little too much of this foliage, and it happens because all this dark brown grass that you see. Once again, the pasture is just not great here. I do not see any of the runny manure though, so at least I'm not giving them too much. Okay, so let's talk about some other ways. The other ways I can tell if I've given them too much is by looking at the grass from the day before. If there's still a lot standing and they're laying down when I get back here, I probably gave them too much grass. That's a big thing. Look at your cows, know your cows, understand what's going on with them. So if I come back and they're laying down, they're lounging, they're obviously not searching for food. They're lounging. Salatin says a cow will typically eat 8 to 9 hours a day, but on good hay, they can eat as few as 6 hours a day. They do not like to eat during this hot cycle. I'm definitely noticing that. I've read that a lot. Read a lot about the ruminant cycle. They like to eat from 5 to 9 here. When it's cool, that's when they like to eat. They'll eat in the morning early, but during the heat of the day, they're trying to lounge some. That's a good sign. If you come back at 5 o'clock to move your fences and they're still searching for food, it might mean that you didn't give them enough. So looking at the grass, by the way the grass is here, I've either got two things. I'm giving them too much or the grass isn't good. And I'm gonna go with the grass isn't good by the way their manure looks and the fact that this pasture, I'm just trying to go through it. So when I get over into the good hay on my field, I'll be more disciplined about my measurements, more disciplined about looking at it and studying how low I want to go. But for now, I'm kind of happy with that 15 to 18 feet a day. And that's how I'm telling. I'm looking at my cows, I'm looking at my grass. The biggest thing about looking at my cows is, are they healthy? So I've got a few flies on them out here, and I noticed my fly bag was getting a little low with the diatomaceous earth over here. So I'm gonna fill that up tonight. Other than that, they seem healthy. They're happy, they're tame when I walk up to them. They're eating and drinking properly. They're going through the water like they should. They've got all the minerals and the kelp and the salts over there that they need. They're consistently eating small amounts of that, so they're not gorging themselves on that. And they're slow when they walk. They're not running and grazing real fast across the field. They're slow to walk. And so I've heard that a cow has 5 mouths, 4 he walks on. So the less you can move your cows as far as foot traffic on that hay, the more you'll retain and the more they'll eat. That's a good thing. So they're walking nice and slow. They're comfortable. You can see how close they are here, but I can walk right up and touch them now. We've been out here enough. So watching the health of them, looking for those kind of things, that's a big part of watching your cows and watching how they eat and when they eat and those kind of things. That'll tell you if you're moving them enough. So how often do I move them? Okay, so I move my cows every day. I like to see them every day. I need to check their water every day. I don't have a automatic water. That's a big issue. That's one of the main reasons I move them every day. I just need to make sure they're safe out here. We don't have any permanent fencing on this side. That's another issue. So I need to make sure I can get them back. So you can see where they're at today. They're right here. I don't know if you can see the line here, it's kind of faint. And then the others that we set up down on this side, there's another stake and the lines go back this way. So I try to set up 2 or 3 paddocks at once, and then all I have to do is come and unwind one real easy in the grass they've already eaten. The reason is these little sticker thingies, they get on my jeans, and my wife doesn't like that in our laundry, so that's why I'm wearing bibs. So I put the bibs on, I set up 3 or 4 paddocks, and then on the days that I take it down, I don't have to do that. But that's what I'm doing. I set it up, I turn my charger back on, I test each line just to make sure I got good contact, and then we go on. But I'm moving them every day. So I had another video and I talked about moving cows a little bit, and I said the cows eat less, which isn't exactly true, and somebody called me on it. They don't eat physically less, like the less amount of weight on their plate. They're getting enough to eat. The biggest issue is they eat less grass up because they have 4 other mouths that they walk on. Like I said, they tear up less. So the proper thing I should have said is that they tear up less grass or less pasture. Therefore, I get more grazing time in this, and it's more efficient to do this. So I'm out here about 5 minutes when I have to take down a fence. When I put up fences, like every 4th day, every 3rd day, I'm out here about 15 minutes, maybe 20 if I'm going slow and I have some things to do. If I took that time throughout the life of this cow, the 1 year that I'm hoping they only take 1 year on grass, I'm going to pay myself in efficiencies. I'm going to pay myself in better ground and hay. I'm going to pay myself in less ground needed. Eventually the efficiencies will go up, and I'll need less hay per cow or less grazing acreage per cow. And I'm also being efficient on how often and they're tearing up land. So it allows land to move back better. They get a better intense diet, a better nutrient rich diet, because they eat everything in that area. They're not just sniffing out what they want. They move less, and they become more comfortable with you and the land. So if you have wet spots, you can graze it other times a year from your dry spots. That'll also increase your efficiency. So looking at your land and determining when you want to graze that paddock or that square. So that's why I do it. I think it's going to pay for itself in the end. I'm not using any grain. It's all grass fed, and this is how we're moving them. So I hope this helps you. I hope it lets you see what we're doing, how we're doing it. If you have questions about what stakes we're using or what wires we're using, I'll try to post that in the description. Let me know how I can help you. Comment, and I'll give you those kind of things. I want to let you know I'm not against the corn farmer. This isn't. I saw a shirt that said farming is a noun, and it has like a definition, and it means you're growing the food for the world and everybody thinks you're trying to kill them. I don't think that's happening. My uncle grows grain-fed beef. I don't think my uncle's trying to kill people with that. He's doing what he thinks is right. He's doing what's best for him, and he's doing what he's been taught, and the USDA approves this. Obviously, we have huge feed lots for animals, and you've seen Tyson chicken houses and Smithfield pork houses, CAFOs, and all kinds of things. They're all approved. These people are not out to hurt you. They're not being malicious with the way they're raising cows. Do I want to turn these people onto grass? Yes. Is that my overall goal? Maybe, maybe not. The way I think I'm going to turn grain farmers into pasture-raised grass cattle is by showing them the profitability. Not showing them that it's easier, not showing them that scaring them with food talks about how corn is poison and Roundup is poison, not scaring them with people who are wanting other things and how the market's going to crash and zombies, not scaring them with that stuff, but showing them that it's actually more profitable to do it this way and produces a better product. That's the only way I'm going to turn farmers, if I ever turn them at all. Most don't care a word about what I say. But this is what we believe, and this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to give a good product. We care about our animals. We care about the way they're raised. We care about how they live. We're giving them shade and trying to reduce their stress. We're caring about those kind of things. But most of all, we care about a healthy product that goes to our customers. And this is what I'm trying to do to produce that. I may learn in the future that I'm completely wrong, and I'll admit it at that time. But right now, I think this is the best thing I can do for my cows and the best way I can raise beef for my family. And I hope it helps you. So keep growing your own, subscribe to us on YouTube, keep following us, and tell your mama and them. Appreciate it.